Much. Moving on to item number 4. Again, this will be our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, addressing us concerning our Railroad Avenue road diet. And in your presentation, before you do it, as far as education on why we do things that we do, because not everybody attends every one of these meetings, do you want to give a brief history of the past 3 years that we have been working on the road diet experience, and just basically touch upon the public involvement process and where we, you know what I'm saying? Could you kind of do that?
Sure.
Is that okay?
So a couple years ago, a community-led downtown visioning group was formed to take a look at all of downtown, but mainly Railroad Avenue. And they have been meeting on a monthly basis for quite some time, over a couple of years now. And they got a grant and also some city funds that went towards a design of a concept of what Railroad Avenue would look like in the future. The city has had involvement with that. Commissioner Moore sits in on that, and also staff to give input, but it was mainly community-led. And since then, over the last 6 months, that committee has stopped meeting and have left most of the design and planning up to city staff. But most recently, through this expansion of the road diet, we have gotten them back together to get their input. And with that, we had the failure of the 4th and Railroad traffic signal, which played a vital role in decisions that are being made today for what to do with that intersection. Originally, it was proposed to put a traffic dot that doesn't look at this point, at least in my opinion and current staff's opinion, that would have worked. So with that, it was either paying to rebuild that traffic signal and the cabinet, but when we looked at that and had a traffic study done by a traffic engineer.
Right, just so we hired then a traffic engineer to study that light, and what did they recommend?
He not only studied that light, but most of the railroad corridor, at least from 3rd to 5th, and made his recommendations. And his recommendations was to remove the traffic signal because it did not meet any of the 8 traffic warrants that you need to justify a signalized intersection.
Could you share also how much that would have been to replace that electrical box and maintain it each year?
Right now, the proposed estimate for that traffic signal cabinet was somewhere in the neighborhood of around $60,000. And we anticipate, I think that might be a touch low once we got through designing that, but that was the estimate at this point. And we looked at and tried to estimate what the maintenance of that signal would be, and we think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 a year to maintain that traffic signal.
And the last question I would have concerning this, over this past at least 2 years, other than commissioners being involved with the public process, with our crayons in this room filled with people with their ideas, what has the commission asked you to do anything on all of this? Hasn't this all been community and survey led? The direction that this is going is 100% citizen driven. The commission hasn't been involved in making any of those other than approving the surveys and the citizen led comments.
As far as I'm aware, it's been 100% citizen and business owner driven to revitalize downtown.
Okay, and that's kind of just for everybody's information, because it goes so long, people could think that the commissioners just want to do this thing and it's us 3 and we're running this thing. And so basically it is 100% public oriented volunteer people that have submitted to surveys, and then we take that and we base that against a consultant's opinion, and that's the information you have given us.
Yes.
Our decision will be the final decision, but it's based upon the volunteer activism and involvement and studies by people who are the professionals that study that.
And as I mentioned last week, the public outreach, especially over the last month, has been extensive, ranging from online surveys to door-to-door visits with downtown business owners. We have had multiple radio spots, social media, and also within our local newspaper. So the outreach has been extensive, and we have gotten a large amount of feedback, especially through the survey. We had 355 posts on that commented and gave their opinion. So the outreach has been great, and the feedback from citizens have been wonderful.
What do you think is the issue? Is it just because there's always been a light there, people think that there needs to be a light? Because there's not one at 3rd and there's not one at 5th, but is it, where is this coming from the people that are saying, I'm really distraught that there's a light gone?
I can't speak to what they're thinking of, Commissioner McDowell, but the thing I guess that we're looking at from the staff level is that intersection is no different than any of the other intersections downtown that are not signalized, other than 1st and 7th that are. That intersection is no different than any of the others, and actually from doing the traffic survey, the pedestrian counts, it looks like 3rd Street is actually the busiest intersection that we have downtown. It's not necessarily 4th Street. It looks like it is actually 3rd Street, moving towards those movements towards the post office. So, yeah, as far as looking at it from what people are thinking, I do not know, but it is no different than any other intersection downtown.
Okay, now we're going to have public comment on it, so let's take things in order. Okay, thank you for that, little bit
You're
of
welcome.
history on where we are
Yes,
today.
thank you.
I cut you short on, were you going to talk more than what you just said about this?
I do not have any other additional information for you this week other than what we shared last week.
Right, and Commissioner Moore has a question.
Sure.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I have a clarification about the very beginning of this process. It was more than just the small committee that has been meeting regularly. There were a number, I don't remember the exact number, but upwards of 100 people at least that participated in the walking studies and in the workshops that form the basis of the report that we use to make recommendations from. So there has been, even from the beginning, a lot of public involvement.
And at this point, I would invite anybody that wants to speak about this issue to just come up and state your name for the record. Is that
You have a letter that was requested that we read into the record.
okay? Well, this lady had her hand up, so I'm going to let her go first, and then we can read that letter.
I do not have a card from her.
Hi.
What card for that? So do we want cards filled out for these?
Shall I fill it out now?
Sure. And in the meantime, we could read the letter.
Okay, all right, that's good. Oh, this is kind of winging it a little bit, but let's do that as Robert Rules is our guide here. So at the moment, we're going to have a letter read into the record at this time.
This is a letter from the Mason County Forest Festival Association. Dear City of Shelton Commission, we would like to express some praise as well as some concerns for the Railroad Avenue Road Diet. First, thank you for taking the time and testing some different options. We appreciate the city's support in not using boulevards or snakes down the middle of the road to allow our parade as well as events to function properly and safely. MCFFA is very excited to see a beautiful, vibrant downtown, especially when thousands arrive each year for the Forest Festival and the Paul Bunyan Grand Parade. Our hope as the city staff works to finalize a plan for Railroad Avenue is that the center lane remain flat without raised curbs, islands, or lowered gutters. Most may think the main concern for the parade function is the floats and vehicles. However, remember too, the marching bands and those on foot. Uneven ground could be unsafe. Another concern raised after a few comments from city staff is the rumor of removing the parades from downtown altogether. It's a statement that has been heard more than once recently, and MCFFA would like to respectfully ask that this idea be put to rest. Parades belong in the heart of the city. It's downtown. Forest Festival is 73 years old this year. 73 years of Paul Bunyan Grand Parade on Railroad Avenue. It's home. It's where we belong. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to many festivals and a lot more fun in downtown Shelton. Sincerely, MCFFA Board, Amy Cooper, President, Mick Sprofsky, Vice President, Judy Bidwell, Treasurer, and Cheryl Erdsley, Secretary.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll have a comment on this card. Just state your name for the record, please.
Hi, Annette Matriciano. I just wanted to comment on the traffic light that has now been covered up and not functioning, and just give you my opinion that I really feel that it should be repaired and maintained. When I was working downtown and I would leave, and we get, as everybody knows, a lot of rain and it gets dark early in the winter, and I am a very careful, cautious driver, and I can't tell you the number of times where it's been really alarming, you know, when the rain's hammering at your automobile and you literally can't actually see clearly out of your side windows. And I just almost pulled out into traffic and got nailed. And I just feel that the 7 blocks is a bit too far, because I make an effort now, no matter what the weather, I make an effort to go to a light at 1st and 7th, because I know I have a clear shot. I can see that no matter what the weather is. I can see that light. So just for safety's sake, for pedestrians as well as traffic crossing across Railroad, I would like to see the light repaired and maintained. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
And we have Forrest Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission. Mayor, I'm Forrest Cooper, 409 West Railroad Avenue. I had the pleasure of working with the Downtown Visioning Committee throughout the entire process. However, my comments today are of my own. I would like to offer my support to the city for the proposed design of Railroad Avenue Street Diet. The chosen design reflects the standard street diet model that has been implemented in cities all around the country. The changes should satisfy many of the concerns brought forth from the public during the demonstration period. Besides the addition of a bike lane and limited use of yellow paint, the only suggestion I would like to make to the road diet at this point is with the proposed changes to the parallel parking spaces. The proposed parking configuration, as it's been presented to the Commission, will eliminate the painted buffer boxes and enlarge the spaces. Although the spaces might be larger, the available space to move in and out will be reduced significantly. This will be a considerable downgrade for the parking from 1st to 5th and will make it more difficult for drivers within our downtown shopping area. What we currently have is considered paired parallel parking, and although it might seem the parking space itself is smaller, the overall maneuverability is much greater. To give you an idea, on the 400 block in front of our building, the parking space is 18 feet long with a 10-foot long buffer or cube. According to the Federal Highway Administration, the suggested size for this type of parking is a 20-foot length with a 6-foot buffer, comparable to what we have. That's a total maneuverability potential of 26 feet to 28 feet. By eliminating the buffer and making the space 22 feet, as suggested by staff, there is a potential loss of 4 to 6 feet of maneuverable space. The pairing of parked cars serves many purposes, including organization of the randomness of parallel parking. It creates ease of locating an available spot quickly, allows rear loading of items into parked cars without being blocked in. It creates larger vehicle accommodations, in addition to many others. Both paired and non-paired parallel parking considerations are discussed in the Federal Highway Administration's 72-page Road Diet Informational Guide, as which I have provided you with a page from today. It states, Consider paired parking to reduce conflicts and delays with vehicle parking. Commissioners, please retain the paired parallel parking. It works well. If the cost and labor of painting the boxes is the concern, please consider some options, including the absence of paint within the buffer zones altogether. I've provided you with the illustration of some ideas. One last note, if at all possible, painting all crosswalks red at the intersections from 1st to 7th would be a wonderful way to complete this phase of the project. And to the staff that's been working on this, I applaud you guys. You've done an awesome job. Craig and the guys have gotten out there and spoke door to door with everybody down there, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Any more questions or comments from the commission?
I would just like to say that despite, it's been interesting that it has been a cooperative effort as far as the committee that has done this. And I have to say that, honestly, I like the back-end angle parking, but I was not in the majority, so I guess we're looking at that going away. So it truly has been a community effort, and I've been really happy to participate with that. So, thank you.
It's been quite the discussion.
Yes, and
Over dinner, over lunch, over whatever, over a glass of wine.
Yes.
It's been really good, a good discussion. I don't think we've discussed a project in length as we have this one. And I appreciate listening to people that don't like it, the people that do like it, the people that want it, the people that don't want it. So it's a good thing.
I told this story last week, but I'll just tell it again. I had a conversation with a local businessman. It wasn't Forrest Cooper, but and I was sitting there, and he was talking, and I was talking. And he wanted me to do this and that, and I says, "Here's the deal. Let's just you and me. Let's figure out what we want to do. Okay, we'll just you and I. Railroads are our deal, and you and I will just do what we want to do, and we will just forget the 99.9% of the other people, and we'll just do what we want to do." And he looked kind of shocked at me, and I said, because if you get 70% of the people in favor of an idea, that's a landslide, okay? It doesn't mean the 30% were wrong. Hear me very clearly on this. We all have an opinion. We all have a right to speak. We all have a part to play in this. But this has been talked about and worked about and studied and surveyed and resurveyed to where we got that 70%. And I am in favor of moving forward at this time with this issue. And I basically didn't care about probably any of it. I mean, I want the city to do what the city wants to do. I want it to work out nice. It looks good to me. I think we're moving in the right direction. But it is time to make a decision. And so at this time, what I would do is request a motion and set a public hearing for May 22nd, 2017. So I believe that's, you had
I
something
just
else?
have a question.
Sure.
Before we do that. So I'm unclear about this. So when we move forward with this, we're still going to be nailing down some of the final details later, right?
That is correct. I think that's important.
So it's still up for discussion. We're just at this point looking to approve the railroad diet expansion and revision of the project. And so we're not voting on the final product right now. Is that true?
I think that's true over an extended period of time. This is something that we are just wanting to expand
Okay.
on the road diet, but it will be something that we will have to look at again before we do a full restoration project for the downtown area, including Railroad Avenue. We're looking at a larger project, somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range, that would go from First Street out to 101. So we would look at that and tweak that to get the final product at that sometime between now and then.
So what we are voting on today is
Those points.
the alternatives, these elements right here. We are voting to move forward with those, but
What you're really voting on, Commissioner Moore, is the picture that we provided you. We tried to list all of
okay.
those in there, but that picture, that illustration shows all of the modifications or upgrades to Railroad Avenue, including the elimination of the back and angled parking, going to the pushing it back to the curb, eliminating the yellow boxes, painting the intersections on Railroad Avenue.
I had one question that there has been some discussion, and we've talked about the red paint on the east-west intersections, going from east to west. Is that a potential thing that we could incorporate into this, or is that something that we can discuss as we're bringing these things forward?
You're talking the crosswalks east-west on Railroad Avenue? We are proposing to paint all of them between 1st and at least 7th.
But the drawing just shows the ones that are going across Railroad. They're not showing the ones crossing the side streets.
So you're talking the ones on the numbered streets up and
Yeah.
down. At this point, we don't have the budget to paint those ones.
Okay.
So we can certainly look at that if the commission gives us direction to take a look at finding funding to do that. We can certainly take a look at that, but this is about $5,000 over budget at this point, just to do the expansion or the improvements that we have proposed, because originally we had $15,000 for the traffic dot, and right now it looks like the estimate for this proposal is about $20,000. But we can absorb that within the operations budget at this point. So if the direction would be to take a look at what the cost of that would be, we certainly could do that.
Do you guys understand?
Yes, I
what
do.
we're
So have
talking
all the
about?
crosswalks, north, south, east, and west, all in red.
Yeah.
Which we don't have the budget for now.
But we could do it later.
Well,
Maybe.
you can do it every year forever is what we can do. I mean, but we're just looking at just the straight shot right now. It's not like, that's not a good idea, or we can do them next year, I guess.
You could certainly do them next year. We will have some maintenance on these in the future, so the street budget is a general fund budget that does not have a lot of money in it. So if we want to take a look at that, that will probably be something that we will ask of the commission to approve for next year's budget, unless we get direction from the commission to take a look at how to get that done for this
Right.
year.
So the decision right now that we're faced is if two of these commissioners want to do those side street sidewalks now,
Crosswalks, yeah.
we can make an amendment to this,
That is true.
and we can choose to do that. Or we can choose to just follow the prescribed order here, and that's not at this time. Not a bad idea, not something we can do next year, but it's our decision, do we want to add that at this time? And the budget for adding all those was?
We don't have a
We don't
budget
do
for
it?
that at this
Right.
point.
No, I mean, a guesstimation, because if we were doing it now, we probably would want to say, is it going to be another 5,000? It's going to be 20,000?
Conservatively, I think you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000 to do the side streets.
And then more maintenance every year, a little more maintenance every year than normal, right?
Slightly more maintenance
Okay.
on those.
So that's the decision commissioners have to make.
7,000 to 8,000, not 78.
$7,000 to $8,000.
So there's
That
been
is a-
some talking, some citizens have been talking about the side going, not across Railroad, but the other way.
On the numbered streets.
Doing some artwork, some trees, painting them white and then doing trees or fish or something that has to do with our community on those side crosswalks. That would be a possibility of getting some artists in on those projects and doing, not all the side streets, but some of them with artwork?
That's not likely,
Okay.
Commissioner McDowell, simply for the reason we can't put regular paint in the crosswalks. It has to be a non-slip paint,
Oh,
and that non-slip paint only comes in certain colors, and the application of it is fairly labor intensive. I'm not sure that you would be able to do
okay.
much artwork with the
Okay.
non-slip paint,
All
which
right.
would need to go within the fill of the crosswalk.
Sure, yeah, okay. Just asked. People were asking
So
about that.
back to the motion and the amendment, if we chose to do that, we are deciding if we want to spend another unbudgeted $7,000 to $8,000 at this time, while you're doing all of the other sidewalks. At this time, do we want to do that?
And if
At
I
this
can
time.
just reiterate, we're about 5,000 over budget just with the proposed changes
Right.
that we have right now.
Right, so, and we just have an emergency pump issue that's coming up, which is talking about possible hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, that's on the next page coming up. So, my feelings are we should approve this, and with those, the next ideas is to do that hopefully maybe next year. And I'm not against the idea, but at this moment, I am not probably in favor of budgeting 78,000 more than already over the 5,000. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would probably say wait, not a necessity. Get the Railroad Avenue ones done. Cross streets maybe later.
Okay, so that's where I'm leaning.
I don't know.
But
I think it'd look great. I
well,
really do.
okay, so
Well,
Commissioner
and I
Moore.
guess that my feeling on that is I realize we're over budget, and I realize that an additional possibly $8,000 is what we were not intending to do. But I also consider the actual value of it, and would Railroad Avenue as a whole, would that additional make that difference? That would make it really
Pop.
exactly,
Pop's
pop.
the word.
So, as we're investing the money, I guess, I understand it would be
We
a
have more people
stretch.
from the public who'd like to talk about this, and I'd be happy if you want to come in, and if you filled out the card, if you want to add comments, I'll let this happen again. So, but you can't, we don't do from there. You have to come, state your name, and speak from that podium. If you want to comment, you can do that. We welcome that at this time about this issue. So, I'm opening this up for any public comment. If you want to speak, you have to make sure the card's filled out, and you can go and you can speak.
So,
Our policy is what our policy is, but we'll waive our policy at the moment and have staff explain what a double box is.
I do have a question. Back to the painted side crosswalks. Is it cheaper to do it?
Pardon me.
I'm sorry.
Pardon me.
I'm sorry.
I was in the middle of something.
I'm
with
sorry.
this.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
you gotta wait for
Okay.
a second, because I've got 5 things going on. What I
Okay.
did is threw the policy out, and it was a simple question. I'm trying to kind of do that.
Yeah, right.
So at the moment, let's just relax a little. Let's explain what the box thing
Okay.
is, okay, first, and then we'll come to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can answer that because I'm not sure I know
The
what.
double box, I think her question was, what's a double box? I think it's the painted,
The double parallel parking that Mr. Cooper was speaking of? Is that the question? Because we don't have any double boxes on Railroad. So I'm not sure.
we don't know on that one. Okay, so, you had a question? Did you want to enter that in at this time? Go ahead. We're going to waive our policy and listen to that at the moment.
This came from King County, of course, and the mayor of Seattle, he's wanted to paint a big Beacon Hill, and all the crosswalks were different colors, and the state came out, Auburn wanted to make a lot of colored sidewalks also, or crosswalks, and the state recognizes 2 colors for crosswalks, yellow and white.
Right.
And that's it.
And whatever we do will be legal, so,
It won't be legal. And
Well-
like, they said,
Right.
they said, somebody gets killed,
Yeah.
you better get the printing press out.
yes. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to explain to you that whatever we do, we will do legal. So let's just address this question, and no more questions other than what's filled out on the form and from that podium. So let's answer that last question, please. He's talking in terms of whatever you paint our sidewalks, he has an issue, it's only white or yellow. I believe that's the outside lines, not the interior.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever we do will be legal, okay? All right, now, any other public comments about this issue, I will accept, but someone's got to fill the card out, and then they got their 3 minutes. So if you want to do that?
Just a quick clarification.
No, I don't even want to do that one anymore. because I bring, listen, hey, I'm chairing the meeting. I want you, if you got your card, then you gotta come up, do that, because we don't, this is not commission led by casual comments. Go ahead.
I totally admire and appreciate process. We got to have that. The clarification, I was really involved actually directly with the painting of the crosswalks red. I did a lot of discussion to make that happen. We found out through Federal Highway that Railroad Avenue is a federal aid route. It receives federal funding for its maintenance because it connects two highways. So there were some stipulations that were brought up, or some concerns by previous public works that pertain to this. So we did a lot of research, and to answer your question, Kathy, I found out from Federal Highway that we cannot have any kind of artwork or anything in between the lines. It has to be a contrasting color of either burgundy, brick, or red.
But the side ones.
All of them, yeah.
All of them.
They're all on and adjacent and affected by that. So that was something, because
okay.
I asked specifically with Federal Highway about that to get some clarification, because these red crosswalks almost didn't happen because we had some previous staff that were pretty much assured that we couldn't have red, where historic towns all over the city have been modifying to it. So just want to clear that.
Okay, now, as chair of this meeting, I'm going to try and ask everybody, please refrain on following the proper order of the meeting. So we're going to back to Public Works, and I'll take full blame for letting this thing kind of wing out. But we're going to Public Works, and we had a discussion, a good discussion amongst commissioners. What do we want to do? I don't think the 7,000 or 8,000 is going to kill us, but based upon what I heard about pumps this morning, I think it weighs heavily on my choosing not to go with the sidewalks at this time. That's my opinion. Commissioner McDowell had an opinion. Tracy Moore.
I was
Commissioner,
in-
had an
yes.
opinion, and you were talking, and I
Yes,
probably
I was.
cut you off to try
Yes, you
and
did.
field these comments out here in the general media or people. So back to you. You can
Okay.
have the floor.
Okay, so I would definitely like to consider the crosswalks on the side street, because I think that the value can't be measured only in dollars at this point. And I understand we have another thing we're going to be discussing, but this is this discussion. So I would prefer to look for the money to attempt to do the crosswalks along the numbered streets as well.
Just a quick clarification. You are talking about two separate budgets. One would be general fund driven.
Yes.
The other one would be a utility driven expenditure.
Yes.
Just a clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have that point, we have my point. At this moment, I believe we ought to just do the plan, and there will be next year to talk about the sidewalks. So that is the 2 points we have at the moment. Commissioner McDowell?
I just have a real simple question. What would it cost to wait the following year? How much more would it cost to wait another year to do the side ones versus do them all at one time? There wouldn't be.
You would have just inflation, whatever the cost of inflation would be on the paint. I can't predict the future of what that paint would cost in the years to come, but I would guess that it would be slightly higher.
So can we come back to this after we hear the news about the pumps and decide if we have an extra $8,000?
Like I mentioned, you are talking about two different
separate,
funds.
okay. Two separate ones, okay.
Yeah, if we don't spend the money on the crosswalks, it won't go towards the other. It's.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're under the question and comment period about whether or not we go forward with the recommended motion. The recommended motion is to do the points that were listed in our briefing, which is eliminate the traffic signal at 4th and Railroad, eliminate back-end parking, eliminate painted curb extensions, expand the crosswalks from 1st to 7th, and add a center turn lane provided painted center islands with a 5-foot buffer lane. Those items are in this briefing, and we are either going to vote on those items or amend this to add on sidewalks on side streets. So, I have made my vote, no one. Commissioner Moore has made her request, no one. Then what I would say, do you want to amend this motion here, or do you want to go through with this motion here?
I would like to just clarify one thing before we do make
Sure.
a motion. One thing that is not listed on there that I want to make clear that it is in the proposal, it is on the drawing, would be the elimination of the yellow squares in between the parallel parking.
Okay,
So I would just like to make that clear so that we are not revisiting this later on, that that's not what we voted on. It is in the picture, it's just not listed within the expansion of the road.
okay. It's up to you.
Well,
We
you
only
you
have
may
three
as well
commissioners.
make
I
the
mean,
motion
there's only-
because you're going to
Are you
be
ready?
deciding.
Ready for this one?
Well, yeah, you can.
I move to approve the Railroad Avenue Diet Extension and Revision Project elements with the addition of the red crosswalks on the side streets. Is that a good motion?
Yes.
Maybe. Is that okay? Is that enough for you, that we're going to have the $7,000 to $8,000? We're going to do the side streets at this time?
That is the decision of the commission. It's
Right,
not a
no.
decision of mine.
Right?
If
Is
you-
that a good motion?
I need to know.
Will work.
It will work.
I
It's an
second
amendment.
that motion.
It's an amendment to the motion. And you know what? This is exciting, because this is democracy in action. I mean, it's exciting to me. Okay, so.
Motion.
So, she made the motion, and now we are going to vote on that motion, which is amended from
I
what's in our briefing.
seconded it, yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Okay, any further discussion? I'm going to try and say the 7,000 or 8,000, okay. But, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gary Krantz is opposed. But the motion passes. Very good.